Greetings and welcome back to, a special iteration of MGTOW Talks. For the first time, this guy doesn't need any introductions. In fact, if you don't know who he is, then you're probably on the wrong channel and someplace on the wrong planet. But anyway, I'm here with none other than Barbarossa, and today we're going to be talking about his own personal evolution as a man going his own way, as well as some of those more unique cultural aspects of coming from a Hispanic culture and how that sort of informed his personal development and his views, and maybe some of the more unique challenges that men coming from a Hispanic perspective and community face. So, everyone give a warm welcome to my friend Barbarossa. I'll just let you take over from there.
Okay. I guess I should just, first, thanks for having me on. I guess I should just maybe begin talking about how I started, learning about MGTOW and how I started, what were the nascent stages of my acceptance of the red pill, swallowing the red pill, whatever you want to call it. Now, as you know, we both hail from the same place, the Bronx, New York. And, I was born in Dominican Republic at first, but I came here when I was I think 1.5 or 2 years old. So I basically grew up in the Bronx. And, as you know, I'm not going to say the area, but you know the area that I did live in.
Yeah.
And so I grew up there, and, I know that that's kind of like a rough area, but we were kind of isolated from that because we grew up in what amounts to one of the very few, I guess you could call it, gated communities in the Bronx area. So we still went to school with a lot of people that lived in the rough areas or whatever, but we also, were somewhat isolated from that, and then we moved up to upstate New York and got away from that about the age of 13. When I was going to school in the Bronx, middle school, I guess you could call it, I would start to see different interactions between men and women. Of course, at that age, I was starting to take interest in girls, and, this was my first foray into trying to get a girlfriend or whatever, or trying to do whatever it is that kids that age do to girls. I was trying to just do anything, get a kiss, get a whatever, right? And so I started learning very quickly that the type of men that, or boys at that point that girls preferred, were very different from what I had been told. I don't know if you saw the Tupac video that I uploaded.
I did, yeah. It was a good video.
But yeah, it was basically, that was the situation that I was thrown in. You kind of go into it expecting that girls are going to like you if you treat them nice, if you treat them well, but then I started learning very quickly that didn't work. In doing that, I started to adapt, and I started to treat girls a little bit differently. And of course, at 13 years old, you're just kind of getting the inklings of this, so it's nothing too extreme, but you start adapting. And then I got my first introduction into, and this was actually what kind of hurt me the most. I mean, the fact that women were like this really didn't bother me that much, which is kind of bizarre at such an early age to me, now that I look back on it. But what really hurt the most is I got my first introduction into the backstabbing, white knight male. There was this girl, Tiffany was her name, I still remember her, and I had a crush on her, and this other kid, one of my best friends, Mike, had a crush on her, and we both wanted her, and so we just, kind of would talk to her and stuff like that, and I noticed that she was taking a little bit more attention to me, right? And then one day, I still don't remember the actual betrayal, but I vividly remember that Mike did something very, very shady in order to make himself look better in the eyes of this girl, Tiffany, or whatever. And that was my first introduction to how women were, and how, girls were and how boys were. And from then on, it started progressing. As I just said, we moved up to upstate New York, but nothing really changed. You started to see the same kind of dynamic happen when I was in high school. And, that kind of set the stage for, the progression into I guess I was one of the few lucky men who decided that, you know what, this isn't right. You know, one of the few lucky men who, after adapting, finally came to the conclusion that, I mean, I can't live my life this way. It's not the correct way to live, as far as I'm concerned. I guess you could call it kind of, you see the PUAs kind of transitioning into this neo-masculinity nonsense because they know that on some level it's kind of a hollow existence to continue to just chase pussy and validate yourselves through women. I had that when I was like 16, you know? And so I guess that was the initial stages of it.
Right. Well, I mean, I gotta say, compared to me, man, that was a lot. Man, I was blue pill well in my 20s.
Yeah.
And I was a virgin up until I was 19, and man, I worshipped that girl when I was completely mangina, blue pill.
Well, I think you take it in stages. You know,
Yeah.
it's like for some men describe the red pill as a singular event. I would describe it more as a series of injections. You know.
Yeah. I think that's accurate. Yeah, because I mean, I think even before I started watching your videos and even heard of MGTOW, I would have described myself as a purple pillar in as much as I was pretty skeptical. In fact, the last and final relationship I had, I kind of had to be strong-armed into it. I'm like, oh, I don't know. And
Yeah.
I was skeptical of the whole thing the entire time.
Yeah.
And I've been perfectly fine for a while without any serious commitments or anything. And so definitely it went through stages. And I knew something was off,
Yeah.
but it took a long time to actually find the descriptions of just what was off, rather just some of the feeling, you know.
Well, yeah, you know, everyone's different, and everyone's gonna look. We should all count ourselves amongst the lucky for having had made this transition in the first place. A lot of men,
A lot
of men just never get there.
I was talking to Clive CS. I said, you know, it's pretty. I guess it's pretty morbid to talk about it this way, but we were talking about his ex-wife and the new sucker she got, who she had a new kid with, and
Yeah.
he was telling me every time he sees him, every couple of months or weeks or whatever, he looks older and more stressed out. I said, well, you know, you can't save everyone.
Yeah.
These guys, they're kind of just showing us the damage that's done. We got to just use them as examples of what not to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. We're not going to be able to pull out everyone out of the matrix, so to speak, and that's fine. You know, I've made my peace with that. I'm not, you know, I mean, in a way, oftentimes, when people kind of like expect MGTOW to help all men, or you know, it's kind of like reinforcing male disposability. It's kind of like a lot of people view MGTOW as some kind of force that's there just to serve other men, and pick them up and fix them every time they continue to make this mistake of getting married or cohabitating or having kids with the wrong women or having kids at all, really, you know. And we can help and we can offer assistance. And after you reject it, you know, I mean, you're on your own. And MGTOW isn't here to pick these men up. And
yeah, I remember a video you made a couple of years ago about a guy who kind of complained to you that he had.
Yes, you know, the marriage.
He had been so convinced that he had found, you know, the right one.
Yeah, well, yeah, a lot of guys, they go to make the mistake that we tell them not to make. And nobody's perfect, fine, everybody makes mistakes. But they go on, make the mistake, pridefully call us a bunch of losers while they're making the mistake, or a bunch of virgins or whatever. Then they make the mistake, they realize what a fuck-up it is, and then they're looking back and saying, well, why the MGTOWs don't do anything for men when you really need them? It's like, no, we did something for you. We gave you the advice and information you needed to make an informed decision. You went ahead and made it. And so, you know, we're not your daddy either.
Well, it's preventative medicine, basically.
Exactly, it's the best kind of medicine. But
yeah, and if you decide to go on and I don't know, consume the bad drugs or do the bad things, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
You're going to still get screwed over.
Sure. But let me continue then into I guess my transition right into the MGTOW world. So I get out of the fatherless ghetto culture of the Bronx, right? And I am now living in upstate New York, and I guess we'll just fast forward to after I got out of high school or whatever, and I'm starting to date girls more seriously. I'm still kind of I guess you could say blue pill at this point. Um, then okay, so I get into my first long-term relationship or whatever, right? And this was at the age of, I believe, 19, 20. And so I meet this girl. I'm not going to give any details because she's kind of crazy. And, I don't want any kind of backlash if for whatever reason she happens upon my channel. But I'll give a summary of our relationship, right? The relationship started out as most relationships do. Great, fun, lots of sex. It was enjoyable, no pressure. Things were good for a period of about 4 or 5 months. And then the jealousy started. I still remember this vividly, and this was my first experience with domestic violence. We went to a bar, and we were hanging out in her car right outside of the bar. We both had a little alcohol in us or whatever, and we were close. We were walking distance to my apartment at the time. And so out of the corner of my eye, there's these 2 girls, and she thinks that I'm looking at them. I look over just because I like to have situational awareness, and so I look over at these 2 girls, and then I start turning my head back to look at her, and as I turn my head back to look at her, she pulls back and slaps me in my face, right? And so I'd never been hit by a girl, so I was completely dazed, and I just didn't know what to do at that point. And I held my composure. She tried smacking me a couple times on the walk back home to our apartment, and I defended myself, but I was insistent, no, I'm not going to hit a girl, I'm not going to hit a girl. I was still kind of blue pill, and so I resisted her attacks, but I didn't hit her in any way. We get back to our apartment, and the argument and the fighting continues. I try to tell her to leave, she doesn't, and she smacks me again, and then at that point in time, I just lost my patience and lost my cool, and I smacked her back, and I smacked her back pretty hard. And so she falls down, and she's she covers her face, and it's this dramatic thing where her hair is flies back, and she falls on the floor, and she's got tears in her eyes and stuff like this, right? And so she at that point, you could even see it, is almost like a physical transformation. She went from aggressor to victim mode in 0.2 seconds flat, right? I mean, it was just instant. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm shocked at my behavior because I had never want to hit a woman in my life before. And I still didn't want to hit her, but it was in self-defense. I mean, you could only get smacked and, get attacked so many times and verbally abused so many times before you hit back. So she gets up, and I'm still in silence. I don't know what to say. And all of a sudden, she's crying. She says, "Oh, baby, I'm sorry, baby, please. I know I fuck up sometimes." Just profusely apologetic. And within the next 2 or 3 days, and I was an idiot for staying with her. I should have just left and ended the relationship right there. But as I said, I was blue pill more than red pill at that point. And within the next few days, I noticed complete change in her behavior. Completely, respectful, nice. Again, it was as though the beginning of our relationship had kind of re-blossomed. Then, so I sit her down one day and I ask her, I say, why, what changed, and she just said, well, I needed to know that you had the balls to hit me, right? And I shit you not, that's exactly verbatim what she said to me. And ever since then, it was like something clicked in me. I mean, I still didn't break up with her then and there, but something clicked in me. And I was just thinking, and it was just kind of like a whirlwind, a tempest of observations that I've seen from my friends, the fact that all the women that I've been with, preferred simulated violence in the bedroom to varying degrees. This situation that I had with my then girlfriend, it just kind of clicked in me, and I said, you know what, there is something very, I don't know if the word is sociopathic about female attraction, and that's when I really started exploring the internet and saying, you know, well, maybe there's something I can learn about this. And in the very beginning, I stumbled upon, like, you know, some PUA stuff. And I read about that, and they did have some insights into female nature, but I kind of really disliked the way that they put so much of an obsession on it. So I just kept digging. I stumbled upon the men's rights movement at that point in time, and that's where it all began. At that point, there was very, very, very little MGTOW content. It had kind of, I mean, it was proto-MGTOW is what I would call it. And I started observing, and I would see the occasional comments here and there that kind of reflected what modern-day MGTOW is today. And
yeah, can I just, there was a guy, you must remember his name, Brian. He was based in London, a black guy. He mostly talked about women in the black community. You know who I'm talking about. We talked about him before. How he disappeared. What was his name?
Oh, I think Heavenly Truth 1.
I'm not sure, but he was kind of like proto-MGTOW, I think.
Yeah, there were a couple people, before me that were proto-MGTOW, and I was like still heavily traditionalist at this point, and we'll get to that in a second. Like, you know, my upbringing kind of primed me for the traditionalist, setup. I mean, it was kind of like I didn't really stand a chance, and I'm really thankful to MGTOW for allowing me to shed that, but. At that point, it was just proto-MGTOW, and then somebody would say something like, you know, it's not feminism, it's more about, you know, women and the way that they behave, and that would just like resonate with me, and I would like latch on to that, and I would kind of think to myself, well, yeah, you know, that guy's onto something. I kind of immediately knew, although I didn't have the words to express it. I kind of immediately knew when I would see the various MRA outfits that existed at the time that were saying that it's all just feminism or it's all just communism. I mean, that was around even back then. I kind of just instinctively knew that was an incomplete understanding of the issue, and I wanted to add something, but I didn't know what yet. So I put out the video around that time. The post-feminism man, and that kind of garnered a very, very big amount of interest very quickly, and it's just grown from there to what we see today.
Well, you did mention Marxist feminism in that video.
Sure, I did, and that just, you know, shows you the evolution of my thought, right? I mean, this is something that took time to craft, right? And so, you know, it's been a long time coming that we could arrive at that point. At the point today where we have these terms like gynocentrism, like, you know, Brieffeld's law or whatever, where we have this emphasis on evolutionary psychology. It took a long time to get to that point, and it took a lot of getting rid of the detritus, and with the help of others, of course, with the help of people like yourself, Spetsnaz, who came later, RBK, and, you know, a whole host of other MGTOW. But in the very beginning stages, I mean, that's why you can look at my previous videos and see like a very real, you know.
And I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, you can be specific about Dominican culture, which I'm somewhat familiar with,
sure.
And Hispanic culture in general. I mean, I you know, not being Hispanic, but being surrounded by tons of Hispanic people when I grew up. I mean, I kind of had a bird's eye view, and
well, it's kind of some of the worst. It's an amalgamation of, you know, in I think this is universal to pretty much all West Indian cultures. I could be wrong on that because I'm not an expert on all of these different countries. I don't know. I mean, I would assume that it's similar in Jamaica or Puerto Rico or, you know, Cuba or whatever, right? With differences here and there, of course, but I assume it's all similar. But it's kind of this weird amalgamation of, like, I guess what you could call the inner city black, American culture or whatever, and also a bit of like heavy emphasis on like machismo and patriarchal culture. I know that sounds like a oxymoron to have those two types of I guess you could call them breeding models working in tandem with each other, but it's there. It's kind of like a mixture of those two things. So you have this kind of very weird trad femme like situation in these countries, in the Dominican Republic and in the communities like Washington Heights here in America that are heavily Dominican and Puerto Rican and etc.
Oh yeah.
Where so men are very much expected to be men. There's a very heavy emphasis on machismo behavior and machismo culture, and you have to like prove your manhood or whatever. But it's also very matriarchal, and more so than I guess what you could call a patriarchal society. So the men are expected to provide, but the women are still kind of given reign of the household. And at the same time, you have a lot of the dysfunction that you see in like the matriarchy of the black community here in America, working in tandem with that. So it creates this perfect storm of kind of expectations for men and chaos for women. Chaos that women implement and because it's drama, it's gossip, it's heavily buttressed by I don't know if you've ever seen this, but Dominican women in particular have an obsession, an absolute obsession with novellas, which are just a Hispanic word for soap operas.
Yeah, I know.
And
I know them.
yeah, and you can see almost, it's really fascinating to watch. You can see a popular episode of some novella will come out, and you can actually see the Dominican women emulating the plot of this episode. It's really fascinating in real life. They actually inject the plot of this soap opera into real life. They will craft and manipulate the people in their lives to reflect this episode. It's that bad.
How did this combination of machismo and kind of what you describe as sort of black matriarchal culture, how did it affect you personally? Did you?
Well, I grew up seeing certain things, as I don't want to give too many details, but my dad, he has a background in engineering, and so he did well for himself. He was able to get out. He grew up in this community right on the border of Haiti, and is very, very simple existence there. You don't have washing machines. Some places don't have electricity. You live off the land there. And he was able to begin his education. His parents kind of scrapped around enough money to kind of make a down payment, I guess you could call it, on classes. He started taking them, and then he worked full time. And paid off the rest of his school. That was about 2 years in the Dominican Republic. Then he came over here to America and finished his degree here. And so he had, I guess, the educational background to escape this kind of matriarchal culture of the Bronx and move up to middle class upstate New York. So he did good for himself in that regard, and he's extremely brilliant, extremely creative. Problem solver type of man, right? That's what I would describe my father as. Very smart, very able to solve problems, technical problems. He can just look at certain things and just know what to do. That would have never occurred to me. But he is just very either ill-informed or just incapable of understanding the way women are. And so he married my mom, and my mom, I'm not going to bash my mom here or whatever, but my mom treats him in ways that I don't approve of, right? So she shit tests him, she does all of this stuff, and he's a lot like me in the sense that he just wants peace and isolation, and so he does it. He kind of gives in, right? And I don't give in, in my relationships because I have this educational background that the red pill and MGTOW has given me. So I don't compromise. I don't, whenever a woman is testing me, I go into no compromise mode. And that has served me pretty damn well thus far. But my father doesn't have the educational background, and he kind of has closed himself off to it. If I try to tell him, he'll kind of give it lip service. And with people that are still stuck in the blue pill, which my father is, you kind of have to be delicate and gentle with them, and you can't just give them a full force red pill infusion. You have to kind of say, well, do you think that this is right, that she should be able to do that and you don't get time off of work, or, this is your only weekend, why don't you do something that you enjoy, etc. Why should you be serving her wishes or whatever? And he's like, yeah, I know, but it doesn't really sink in. So my mom and my dad, like, they're married, and because of the machismo culture, the Hispanic culture, they're going to stay married. I mean, I don't ever foresee them having a divorce, but I know that my father isn't happy. And that was instrumental in turning me away from marriage. That part of my culture and my people that says that, you kind of have to be this stoic provider, while the woman kind of gets control of the home, and she's just there to cook and clean. It's basically the traditionalist setup. And I saw that, and I saw how it made my dad unhappy, and I just knew right away, then and there, that that's not something that I want. I mean, he's at the point now where he has amassed enough wealth to retire in like a year or two, and he wants to go retire in the village that he grew up in Dominican Republic. He finds that kind of lifestyle peaceful, and he wants the security, of course, of enough money to retire, so whenever he wants to venture into the more modernized places in the Dominican Republic, he can, and he can go on vacation and stuff like that. But my mother wants to retire in Florida. So here, this man has worked for 3-4 decades. I don't even know how long. And he wants to retire, and he wants to retire in his home country where he was born. And after working all those decades, he can't do that. He can't retire where he wants to because, my mom isn't having it. So it's just like those kind of things definitely reinforced my disgust with the traditionalist setup. I mean, that's why I kind of struck out against it so vehemently in the formulation of, I guess you could call, my version of MGTOW. So I guess that's one of the ways that
do you think your father could ever just bring himself to say, look, I really want to retire to this village where I grew up. You can come with me, or you don't have to, but that's it. You think he could ever do that?
Possibly. I mean, he's talked. I mean, we've had several frank conversations about look, you're getting up there in age, and I just want you to. I told him this. I just want you to have fun and enjoy your life. I want you to be happy, and you got to do what's right for you. And he said, yeah, I understand, and he understands that he's being deprived of something. He understands that he understands the negative aspects of it, and he understands and comprehends why it's unfair to him. But it's like there's, I guess I could describe it as there's a block, a mental block that a fear, maybe perhaps of being alone. I don't know what it is that prevents him from taking that step as up until now. I don't know if in the future, he hasn't retired yet, so I don't really know what's going to happen in the future, but I can see right now that there's a fear in him, to take that step.
Yeah, I mean, he sounds like a smart guy, and my best guess would be, it's a fear, partly based, no disrespect to your mother, this is true.
No.
99%.
No, I don't.
He's been essentially exploited in a marriage for.
No, it's true. Look, one of the things that I promised myself as a MGTOW is I was going to try. I mean, this is impossible to do fully, but I was going to try to understand the world as thoroughly as possible. And, again, she's my mom. I don't have anything against my mom, right? But I have to be honest that certain parts of her behavior are not respectful or considerate of my father. I mean, and that just is what it is. I'm not going to go, I'm not going to invest in, hating my mom for that, because it's just a waste of energy, and I don't want to hate my mom, right? But I also dedicated myself to be honest, and when her behavior is bad, I have to say, your behavior is wrong.
Yeah, I mean, my mother used to. This is, I think, a particular aspect that's not unique to Hispanic sort of culture. My mother used to just, my father, he's overall a good guy. We've had our issues every now and then, but he likes to relax and do his own thing, and there would always be some nagging. You gotta do this, but you gotta do that, and just wouldn't leave him in peace.
Yeah.
And I would observe it, and I think that kind of nagging definitely informed me. Yeah. That marriage, among other reasons, was not a good idea.
Yeah. Well, I would see like certain indicators of it that, again, would just reinforce my dedication towards never, ever, ever getting married. Because my father, again, he's very smart, and he's, like I said, a problem solver. So he had a problem where, and this is kind of, going away at the moment, but he only has a year or two more of having to commute to, he works in the city, having to commute. So it's really not that much of a problem for him. There's a very interesting situation going on for the last 2 or 3 decades surrounding biodiesel and the production of biodiesel. My father, who again has a background in engineering, so he does have some background in chemistry. He converted he has a van, and he converted his van to take what's called straight vegetable oil. So essentially, you can run your car on vegetable oil if you do this. It's something to do, I don't know the details, but it's something to do with replacing the contents of the engine that are plastic with some sort of outfitting that is resistant to the I don't know if they're acids or bases in the vegetable oil, something along those lines, right? But in order to do this, you have to set up. He has this set up in his garage. You have to set up a series of jugs with various micron-sized filters of different sizes, and you pour this vegetable oil into these filters because he collects this vegetable oil from the various restaurants in New York City that don't want them, and they don't want to get them taken away or whatever by a company. So he has several different spots. Sometimes he pays them like 50 cents a jug or something. And when you pour them into these micron-sized filters, it removes all of the cooked material, the excess, I don't know, chicken or whatever. Like he usually, the best places to get them are from like what are these places called? Chinese food places and stuff like that. So you put them through these micron-sized filters. They remove whatever food and whatever else is stuck in the solution, I guess, of this. Of these jugs or whatever of biodiesel, and you can do one of two things after that. You can treat it with some methanol or whatever and remove the fats, the triglycerides or whatever, and there's a certain chemical reaction that you can heat it up and subject it to, and then that gives you actual biodiesel gas, right? Or you can just run it off of straight vegetable oil when it's filtered through completely. So, long story short, he decided to go the straight vegetable oil route, and so that allows him to commute back to New York City, back and forth, which is a distance of about 60 miles, so an hour ride roughly, off of this vegetable oil, and almost never have to refuel with actual gas or whatever, diesel gas. So he saved literally within the last, I don't know, he's been doing this for about 10 years, tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And that has allowed him to take my mom on a vacation every year, stuff like that, right? Or at least it has allowed him more money to kind of allow my mom to buy like trinkets or stuff or whatever she wants, just the useless junk.
But does she recognize his accomplishment and the ingenuity involved?
But the thing is, when he's down there filtering this straight vegetable oil, it's just nonstop complaining about, the fact that, all that man does is work. And it's just like, holy shit. It's just like, I would see that, and little details like that, I just knew right then and there. My father's a brilliant man, but I cannot follow in his footsteps in that regard. That is not the way that I want to live my life. And unfortunately, it took my father not being able to live his life in the way that he saw fit, in order to show me that. I'm not going to squander that, right? I'm not going to squander that and make the same mistake that my father did. While at the same time, wishing it wasn't that way for my father, and wishing it didn't take that to show me that this is in a way that I want to live my life. But again, it is what it is, and there's nothing you can do. I mean, it's already happened, basically. So, that was one of the aspects of Hispanic culture, and this bleeds into other cultures, but it's just very the emphasis on that role to provide in Hispanic culture is something that's very overdeveloped, and so there you have it. I mean, that was one of the key situations that allowed me to see that I just have to reject this. I can't do it, and that kind of that set the stage for a lot of, like I said, a lot of the anti-traditionalist sentiments that I've expressed in some of my earlier videos, and even some of my more recent videos. So that basically is where I get that bent from.
It's interesting. I mean, for me, looking at people, my parents never got a divorce, although did come close once. But all that nagging and really just no peace of mind for my father. But, ironically, when my mother wanted to kick back and read one of her shitty romance novels, which for years, she stopped doing that finally, I guess she's getting old, she needed to be left in peace. But, when he wanted to, he's into astronomy, check out his astronomy books or listen to music or whatever, classical music, and you got to do this, you got to do that. Yeah. It's always like that.
Oh yeah. And that's really a shame, because look at how interesting astronomy is. Look how interesting. I mean, men come up with some really fucking interesting hobbies, and think of how much of that, we've talked about this in videos before. Yeah. Think of how much of that is being suppressed. Because some woman somewhere wants the newest Bed Bath and Beyond fucking special,
Yeah, I was just talking to CS MGTOW. The gold standard of hobbies for women is the golden trio of food, travel, and culture, which essentially means nothing. It's like,
yeah.
Or when I used to participate in online dating, one of the hobbies was going to the movies. Apparently, this is a hobby. So I was telling him, I usually take a walk every day. Yeah. Is that I guess taking a walk in the park is a hobby now.
Yeah. Well, I never understood going to the movies. I like to watch movies by myself. I mean, I don't understand
too, when I watch them at all.
Yeah. I like to just be alone with my thoughts if I'm watching a movie. And I almost never actually get out to the movie theater. These days, you can just wait a couple months and you can just torrent it. So, but when it's a project that I do feel like supporting, I guess, subject matter that I feel like supporting, I'll go and pay I guess these days it's almost $14 to watch a movie where I'm at, which is pretty damn expensive. But yeah, I mean, there's just all sorts of things that men can be doing. I mean, look at Vention. Look at someone like Vention, who, he has all these projects that he's doing. He owns his own home. And does Vention look miserable to you? I mean, does he look like he's, I mean, we get shamed a lot, and we get this kind of mortality threat that people lob at us, and it's like, well, what are you going to do when you're old and alone? Well, Vention's getting up there in age. He's still relatively young, but he's a little older or whatever. And does he look miserable to you? Why? Because, he doesn't. Why? Because he focused on doing whatever it is that he wanted to fucking do. And it looks like for Vention it has paid off in dividends. I think that should be the real emphasis that I mean, that's whatever it is that we do, we have to hammer that into the heads of MGTOW over and over and over again. It's either that, or you're either going to live your life for yourself, or you're going to live your life for somebody else, right? And now all of us have to make that decision. Eventually looks like he does whatever it is he needs to do to pay his bills.
We as men do. Women just automatically live their lives for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of what MGTOW is emulating a lot of the things that women just do instinctively. I've said this before, if the behavior that women exhibited, if men exhibited these behaviors, you get all sorts of tradcons, male feminists, and even MRAs sometimes, calling us selfish, psychopathic pricks. And, but all of a sudden women do it and it's okay. And there's not this blanket accusation of selfishness or having a duty or whatever to society.
No, it's that universal double standard. I mean, it applies to almost everything. In fact, the other day there was a talk between Sargon of Akkad and Goretzwat, and Goretzwat was making some comment about her female neighbor who had been gossiping something about her Goretzwat's husband was, because he was only taking half the groceries and Goretzwat was taking the other half out of the car, that he had been, a lazy good for night, because he didn't take all the groceries. Yeah. He's a lazy fucking bum.
Yeah. Well, this is the degree to which we infantilize women, and they love it. I mean, they want it. So it's like it kind of reinforces itself. Women love to be infantilized, and society loves to infantilize them. So, I mean, it's a perfect storm. There's really nothing you can do to stop it. But yeah, it's gotten so bad now that women are above having, the chore of having to carry groceries into the house. I mean,
well, it's not that. I mean, it's like Goretzwat pointed out again, and I've seen this. If no one's around, they'll do it because they have to, right? Yeah. I mean, if they're the only ones in the car and there's no one, the groceries aren't going to get into the house by themselves. So
sure,
they got to do it. But obviously, if the man is there, it's his job, quote unquote job to take over and just take over the entire project.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah,
it ain't my job anymore.
Well, no, I mean I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, marriage, it was partly the nagging of my mother, and just looking at, couples my parents' age, just divorce after divorce after divorce. My parents came close, never quite made it there. But that's just because of habit. At some point in time, I guess they thought, we're so fucking old, who fucking cares? Let's just suffer together till we die.
Yeah.
Basically. But they're very pragmatic too. They openly talk about the will, and if you don't clear, because my father has this cabin upstate New York, much further than where you are, and I've never really had an interest in it for a lot of reasons. I don't drive, and it just doesn't interest me. But it's great for astronomy. And they said, you better fucking clear that stuff out before you die, because I'm not.
Yeah, well, it's good. That's actually a good quality to have,
Yeah. But I mean, between the arguing, the nagging, and then looking at other relationships and marriages, and of course, I had my fair share as well. I was my first long term was probably between 20 and 22, and I was just. I repeatedly went back to her after just like almost getting my dick chopped. I was stupid.
Yeah.
And, it was for the most superficial, dumbest of reasons. I just thought, man, she cooks so well. Yeah. The sex is so great.
No.
It wasn't, big tits.
See, what you have to understand is that, because I went through this, I call this the ghost breakup period, where you have, your little series of breakups, and then, it's a vicious cycle, but you always end up going back, and you just rationalize it. You find some stupid, retarded reason, really...
I mean, at the time, it didn't seem stupid and retarded.
Yeah. At the time, it seems perfectly rational, but the powers of male self-delusion, especially when it comes to women, are...
That said, I never did have sex that good again, so, I'm not saying it was justifying the...
Well, usually when you have these kind of crazy, even in my case, abusive relationships, they're usually, extremely good in bed, these girls.
Oh, yeah, she was... Yeah. Fucking insane, and she had G cups too. They're insane.
Yeah, so there you go. You just, a lot of what we don't admit to ourselves a lot of times is that the reasons we stay is because there are moments in those type of relationships where they get rarer and rarer as the relationship progresses, but there are moments where it's fun sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But after a while,
Half an hour in the sack or something, that's it.
yeah, and those moments that are fun, it's almost like, women with their, like, their bad boy relationships or whatever. Those moments that are fun to these women are like very, very intoxicating to them, and men, I think, are no different. When they get that feeling of these moments that men value and prize with these like psycho women or whatever, they're usually moments where some kind of intimacy is expressed, some kind of stroking of the male ego. She makes him feel at that moment in time as though he's like the only man on earth, right? And of course that feeds into what we talk about male mother need. It makes him feel like whatever happens, it eases his soul, I guess. Whatever happens.
Yeah, my ex back then, she'd always tell me I was her dream man, which was insane because we didn't have any common interests. And the only thing that bonded us was the fact that she cooked me good meals and the sex. And I just thought, really?
Yeah. And it makes these men, and men are primed for this, right? It eases their soul. It makes them feel like no matter what bad happens, at least I'll have her. That's the biggest weakness. Like, seriously.
Yeah, they should be thinking no matter what anything bad happens, she's the last person I can rely on.
Yeah, exactly. And then and then the ironic part is something bad happens and they leave.
Yeah.
So it's like, the powers of male self-delusion are just almost unlimited when it comes to this stuff.
But that's what I mean about being purple pill in my last relationship, because the last one, I had gotten a tumor. I was really stressed out. I was sick. I was looking for work and trying to finish my master's dissertation at the same time. And she just would just talk on Skype, but she broke up with me over Skype and then just hung up. And, I was kind of in a bad situation at the time. Yeah. And it didn't surprise me. She also cheated on me.
Yeah.
And didn't surprise me either. And I just was kind of, okay, because you go through enough of these experiences, you're either going to wake up or you're not.
Yeah.
And, that late stage of the game, I realized this is it. I'm just not doing this shit anymore. Yeah. Pointless.
Yeah, it's, I'd love to know, assuming we had a complete knowledge of how genetics work or whatever, I would love to know if there's a genetic predisposition to taking the red pill. Because I really feel like certain men almost instinctively fall into two categories after they've had enough abuse. You have the men that kind of resign themselves to their fate, and they just don't resist, and I guess they trick themselves or make themselves believe that this is as good as it's going to get in terms of their ability to attract a mate. And then you have the men that are a certain amount of, when they've taken a certain amount of punishment, something clicks, and they just get out and never go back to that. And, we have kind of way to...
I would argue that, everything is a combination of environment and genetics. So obviously...
Sure.
I mean, assuming an identical environment or a very similar one, and there are always slight differences.
What I'm saying is if you could take two different men, or actually, let's increase the sample size, hundreds or thousands of men even, and subject them to the exact same conditions, or the exact same relationship, could you tease out a genetic marker that is correlated with the group of men that decided to take some kind of red pill escape out of the relationship or not? It's something.
I think so, and let me tell you why. I was talking to CS about this as well with respect to military service. Throughout my life, all the women in my life, including my mother, always call me selfish. Yeah. Now I look at this kind of retrospectively with a sort of a slight badge of pride, but at the time, being called I try to, I don't know, deflect it or somehow refute it. Ex-girlfriends, wives of mine, you're selfish. Female friends, I never heard this from male friends ever.
Yeah.
They said, "Oh, thanks so much for doing this. I try to be helpful." It was only women. And I think part of that is because even this affair thing I had in Korea, I remember being berated by her once because there was there was a car that was basically just running the light, and I had to get out. I just ran right past her, and she got mad at me for not putting myself at risk for her.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and because I'm a coward or whatever, that's what she used.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to protect her. And I think throughout my life, I've just never, I've kind of lived for myself in the sense that I'm very generous with friends, but with women, I did, of course, I was really blue pill sometimes with white knight, but there was some last little bit of me that just realized that, I can't just sacrifice myself for someone else.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of attitude of basically rational self-interest, I've always had that, and I think that's why I never was really interested in marriage and never ultimately I just went my own way. It was really easy after a while, after taking in so many experiences.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what MGTOW is about, really. It's priming, it's giving the people that are predisposed to this behavior a language to understand what they're feeling,
Yeah, absolutely.
I
didn't have that before.
It's useful.
Yeah, we didn't have that before, and before, you're cutting out a little bit. Let's just keep it going, see how that goes. Before, like I said, it was just you're selfish. You're selfish because you're not, running after women all the time or what have you.
I'm not talking right. Can
yeah,
you hear me right
you're pretty choppy at the moment, but
start us. Can you?
I can hear you, but you're choppy. Yeah. Let me call you back. I'm gonna call you back, and we'll do this again. Okay, so sorry for that bit of static interference there, folks. But yeah, we were talking about how basically MGTOW is giving men of this kind of mindset a language and a framework, just a framework where they can express themselves. Because before that, it was just you're selfish. You need to live for other people.
Yeah. Well, what a lot of people I think have to remember. I mean, I really want to stress what an accomplishment MGTOW have made here with this lexicology that we've developed. When I was there, and still your channel wasn't around, and there wasn't even man-woman myth at the time. There wasn't. Razorblade Candy, there wasn't any of these people around. And I know Razorblade Candy was around in kind of the proto-men's rights movement. But in terms of MGTOW, these people just didn't exist. I think it's really important to know that, there was a period in time where nobody was talking about gynocentrism. Nobody was talking about female nature. Nobody was talking about any of this.
Nobody had the balls to do it. Nobody had the guts. Everyone was too worried about offending, and everyone was too worried about being called an extremist or some shit like that.
Yeah, and that's still something that we deal with.
Sure. But we're just past that point. Nobody. If people, I think, in the MGTOW community, if someone approaches you and then isn't willing to have a level-headed conversation with you and just jumps to you're an extremist, you just tend to dismiss them.
Yeah. Well, and also there's a lot of people in the, I guess even outside of the MGTOW community that just kind of specialize in, I always get a little suspicious when I see somebody that just does nothing but response videos who will find some crazy, example of MGTOW and then be like, oh, look, these are the crazy guys, right? And it's like, what MGTOW is doing is it's saying things that are bound to be controversial because it's examining women in a less than flattering light sometimes. Yeah. And so, we have to take risks. We have to say things that are going to generate controversy, and there's nothing that we can do to avoid that. And there's a lot of bottom feeders that are just going to find the worst examples and just say, oh, look, these guys are fucking crazy. But they're not saying anything on their own. They're not putting forth their own theories. They're just picking out the crazier parts of our theories, which is bound to happen. So it's I kind of stay away from those kind of communities because it's just, it's very easy to sit back and, let MGTOW kind of invent a lot of the things and concepts that we understand about women in the manosphere today, and then find the crazy example, and it's oh, look, crazy shit.
Yeah. Well, I think part of that comes from, in part, agreement. Now, increasingly over time, I think that to expand MGTOW ideas, whether so I know people might not agree with me. I think it's important to liaise with people who are somehow related but not directly part of it. And
Sure, that's fine. But like, I think that there's people that are just invested in portraying us as all, psychos or virgins. Or whatever.
Absolutely. I don't participate with any people like that.
Yeah, and you have to kind of find, a healthy balance between inviting people outside of our community into our community and, rejecting the ones that have their own agenda and just want to kind of piggyback on the things that we've talked about and established, while at the same time bashing us. And then there's another element of MGTOW, I think, in that we've seen in the recent developments in the MGTOW community, where again it's like they treat MGTOW almost as a disposable male, right? I mean, they've learned everything they had to learn, and they've benefited from the MGTOW community. And a lot of these people, and I'm not going to give any names, it's just going to start drama, but a lot of these people, they'll acknowledge that they benefited from the MGTOW community, and now they've taken everything that they had, and so then they'll say, oh, all you guys talk about is women, or they'll find any reason to find offense, and they'll kind of be like, oh, you know what, I'm not MGTOW anymore, fuck MGTOW, and it's just kind of like, it's a little lame, Yeah,
MGTOW is really, compared to 2-3 years ago, especially, it's just really exploded, and there's so many MGTOW channels, and I can't keep up with them all.
Yeah.
And there are different ideas and different opinions, and one thing that I don't want to get into details. It's all been talked about already, but I'm not a huge fan of just agreeing for the sake of agreeing. If there's a new channel or even an old one or whatever, if they're saying something I don't agree with, why don't we have a discussion? I mean,
yeah.
Because there's so much MGTOW content out there, it's compared to 2 or 3 years ago or 4, it's gigantic, man.
It's really been exploding. I think you're ultimately responsible for that. That's debatable. I mean, it's there were people before me kind of putting these ideas forward.
Yeah, I got to give credit where it's due. The Happy Misogynist was a pretty cool channel at the time.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite channels when it did exist. I don't know if it's still even around anymore. But...
Who knows, man? That guy lost his mind, Paul Elam. But...
Well, I just I want to give credit to the people that there were various people there before me that would say something that would help to trigger my my progression towards this thought path. And then, from that came the videos that I guess people ascribe as being integral towards the development of the YouTube MGTOW community, which...
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, which is like, let's face it, the largest MGTOW community in the world.
Yeah.
And where, I hate to sound arrogant, but where most of the innovative content is coming from. And there's a lot of forums. I really want to give props to MGTOW HQ and MGTOW.com and all of that. But this is where the bulk of it happens, I think, in the YouTube community. And the reason for that is because we don't shy away from disagreement. Now, what I would like to see happen is maybe, when MGTOW disagree with each other, and that's going to happen, and there's no point in trying to stop it. But when they do disagree with each other, maybe, they can just air it out in public and have like a public forum together. Like maybe we could set up some kind of system where we call each other out in a way that gets rid of all of the drama that comes along with it.
I'm not going to try to rehash that, but
well, we're all a part of it. I've done it. It's like,
I was indirectly part of drama or whatever recently. Everyone knows what was going on. I don't want to bring it up again.
We've all like, you can look back in my videos. There's plenty of angry response videos that I've done, and it's fine to disagree, and I'm not knocking anybody for disagreeing or in the way that they disagree. But again, I think that the MGTOW community has evolved to the point where we do have some kind of community now. And so in order to I mean, we want to streamline this process of disagreement where we can disagree, say why we disagree, and then just kind of keep it moving and keep.
Yeah, I agree. Ultimately, I mean,
I think it would help, is what I'm saying. You know.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, regarding my disagreement, everyone knows what I'm talking about. I've said my piece.
Yeah.
I'll say again for the record, you know, I said it on Nico Chomsky's channel. You know, I said my piece. I'm not going to bring that up again. I'm done talking about that guy.
Yeah, well, I've had conflicts as well, and at a certain point, you start to realize that they just, if we drag them out for long enough, and again, myself and yourself, we've both been involved even before, like, you know, the things that you're going through now with, let's just say it, with like Sandman or whatever. Even before that, you know,
Rocky Mystery.
Yeah, we had plenty of that stuff. We had plenty of that stuff going on, but I for one am done talking about those guys.
Yeah, I know. We had a huge. You had it mostly with Chapin.
Yeah.
But I mean, Rocky Mystery. Yeah. He was.
It's just
he was a funny guy.
You know, it's just pointless. We can keep it going forever.
Music intro. Music intro.
I mean, I just, you know, once I saw that
communism is destroying the nuclear family.
Once I saw that, you know, they were saying that we were like, you know, part of a fatherless Bronx cult. I was like, okay,
the fatherless ghetto cult.
Yeah. After that, I was just like, all right, man. I mean, nothing productive is going to come out of this, so I just decided to move on. You know, it's not worth the time.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's just the best strategy. Even with, as I said, with Sandman or whatever, it just doesn't help anything, and you just got to do what you're going to do. And that, the great thing is I'm really pleased about CS MGTOW's channel. He just put out a new video, which we talked about in the previous talk I did with him today. Yeah. I'll also repeat it again. Check that out. Really, I mean, I would even say integral, because it puts in pieces of the puzzle into understanding the mechanization effect, and even MGTOW is a phenomenon that just hadn't been there previously. So
very interesting.
Check that out. It's about food scarcity and testosterone and stuff. So really interesting stuff there. And they're new people joining the community. You know, Nico Chomsky, he's pretty prolific, and he's a medical. I think that's great. I think the best thing about him is the fact that he's a medical doctor.
Yeah.
And he really, you know, you can talk to him about different things. I mean, from some ailment you have to the most optimal way to wipe your ass, and he usually has something to say about it.
Yeah. No, he's given me actually a good amount of medical advice that, you know, has really benefited me. So, you know, big ups to, there's the Bronx coming out of me again. Big ups to Nico Chomsky. He's definitely very helpful, you know.
No, there's definitely been some positive growth recently. I mean, on the other hand, negative has been the disappearance of Neo Unplugged. I don't know what happened. I know other people talk to him.
Dude, let's just say it. Let's just say it right now. Neo, if you're listening to this, you know, give us something. Give us an explanation. I've tried to contact you on Skype. You know, me and Neo, I consider him a friend. I mean, we would talk for hours. You know, that's the only thing that's worrying me. There's a lot of
something big might have happened.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that he told me that that are going to remain confidential, because he told me.
Yeah, but you could construct a scenario where.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, I'm just, Neo, man. I'm worried about you. Please, just contact me if you can. You know, I mean, I just want to know.
Other people try to reach out. I've never. I tried to talk to him, but by the time I was making the effort, I guess he just.
Yeah.
He disappeared.
He told me, all I'm going to say is that there was something in his life that he was focusing on, some kind of project that he was telling me about, and that's all that I'm going to reveal. And I'm hoping that he just decided that, you know, if I'm going to invest in this project and pursue it, I have to go all the way and not focus on anything else. But if that was the case, then why would he not, like, you know, at least let us know or whatever? So that's That's the only thing that worries about me, Neo, listening to this, you know, content.
And then, I mean, the worst thing to me was when Man, Woman, Myth disappeared. I mean, he just, I mean, look, he was around for a long time. He made some really kind of just provocative videos for their time. They were really just well put together, well edited interviews, and we talked to him privately a couple of times. We know he was in a situation. He had a wife, a son. Maybe that's why he disappeared. I guess we'll never know.
Yeah. The last that I spoke to him, and this isn't revealing anything personal about him, so I don't mind sharing it. But the last time that I spoke to him was a little bit after we, I'm kicking myself because we had a lot of conversations with Man, Women, Myth that we just didn't record,
Yeah, and, I mean, that would have been awesome. Like Man, Women, Myth Unplugged, because he's kind of a legend. He's more of a myth. He is a myth, right?
Yeah, he's somewhere out.
We were around when he was making content, and we talked to him, and a lot of the new guys coming in. I mean, he's a real giant, and you brought this up. One of the greatest things about him is that he was married, but not only had respect, but was very encouraging towards MGTOW, and ultimately seemed to be wanting to nudge his son down the MGTOW path as well.
Yeah. Well, he was also, frustrated with certain, I guess you could call it PC trends in the manosphere that he was, that he would tell us about. I'm not going to say any names or whatever, but he would see like certain things that made him uneasy. I mean, it's just it's very unfortunate that we lost him. But yeah, the last message that he did send me was just basically I sent him. This was like a couple of months after we talked to him last, and I sent him a message and I said, bro, Man, Women, Myth, where are you, man? It's been a long time. And that was over Skype, and literally like 5-6 months later, he responded to that. And he was just like, oh, yeah, man, I haven't peeked my head in the manosphere in forever. Give Stardust my regards. And that was the last time I talked to him. That's the last contact that I've had with him.
I guess we can take from that he's okay, but he just...
Yeah, well, I
think he felt maybe that he had made his contribution and he left his mark. And sometimes people feel that way. And he just wanted to move on and kind of live a normal life.
Look, he also, at a certain point, he said that these videos take forever to make. I mean, he was acknowledging that, and they do. A lot of people don't go behind the production aspect of this stuff, and
especially well-researched scripted videos that fucking take a long-ass time to do, really and then recording.
Yep. Yeah, they really do. And a lot of people learn that as, like, I've had a lot of people tell me that started out watching your videos or my videos, and then they go on to make content, and they're like, oh shit, it's kind of a pretty big investment,
Yeah, and I can know, dude. There was a time when, I'll go on public record after actually saying this. I've told friends this, but I had to change channels and transition because I wanted to monetize, and I was getting a bit fed up. I'd have people send me multiple private messages, literally saying, "Stardust, where's my damn video?" I had they would say, "Give me my video." There were a couple of guys. I'm not just talking about a small number. I'm talking about maybe random guys, 20 different guys. They'd message me. I was thinking, what the hell is going on here? And, it was like I was just trying to provide them their entertainment or something. And that kind of really irked me.
Yeah. On some level, you do want to, I guess the right word is entertain. You want to compel people with interesting stuff.
Yeah, compel, educate. Yeah, I think educate's really the best word.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times some people don't know how much effort goes into it. Like a video like my video, the Stone response, the fucking 2-hour video.
Yeah.
That shit took, probably a month to make. I mean, it was just...
Because you can't always work continuously. I was the same thing with Escape Velocity. Man, that shit took forever to make, and I was glad when it was done.
You're almost glad, like, having it out of,
Yeah, because it's so much work, and I mean, let's face it, people are really interested. They'll watch it, but they tend to get some of those long ass videos, get the fewest views and stuff.
Yeah, but I think those are some of the videos that shine the most,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's kind of, those are the kind of videos that really take MGTOW to the next level. Just like that most recent one by CS on his channel. They're the ones that really make MGTOW content a cut above just Don't get married and
Yeah, yeah.
and women don't date single mothers and and we know that.
I
But
mean, there has to be. We have to find the balance, I think, between perpetual expansion of MGTOW and reiterating points. Because I have found that after you know, 5 or 6 months of having uploaded a really long video where a lot of new ideas are expressed, it's almost as if people forget that they were ever expressed in a video of mine. Sometimes, it's like they kind of forget, because who's going to remember everything from a 1.5 hour video, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And
I usually do, but
well,
like
I mean,
that.
a lot of people are going to forget,
Yeah,
But
for sure.
I just, I guess I wanted to move the conversation forward and maybe talk about this PUA video that you did.
Yeah, let's do that, and after that, I have to close up shop because I got another talk. But definitely, obviously, talking about PUA garners a lot of attention. I felt that I had to offer some commentary because, I mean, as I said in the video, the responsible thing we say, yeah, okay, PUA techniques to help you get laid, but whether it's likely or not, let's not claim that you can deflect a woman who's out to get you.
Well, my I think it goes even a step further from that. Like, I've read some of Rush's more disturbing, I guess you could say, comments. And I think I've mentioned this in a previous video, but there was like some kind of, I could pull up the quote if people really want it. There was a post that he did talking about his adventures in, I think might have been Poland, where he was just trying to, get laid. And I'm not knocking that. If you want to go and get laid in Poland, have fun. But there was a particular post that he did in terms of this woman that he was about to bed. And he even wrote in the post that she had expressed, she didn't want to have sex or whatever. She said no numerous times, and Roosh wrote in his post that he kept pushing the issue and trying to get her to do it anyway. And if she says yes in the end, which she did, then that's not like any kind of coercion or whatever, right? If she says no and maybe no again, and then finally she relents and says yes, I mean, she agreed to sex, right? I mean, I know the feminists are going to have a field day with that, but, if at any point a woman says yes, she has consented to sex. So that's fine and all that. She consented. But the part that really disturbed me was that there was a point in the article where he wrote about something along the lines, I'm going to paraphrase here, but he said, even if she did say, it was worth spending time in a Polish prison to make sure that I got some of that. And I was just like fucking dumbfounded. I was like, what? What do you mean it's worth it? Pussy is worth spending time in a Polish prison, really?
According to Rollo Tomasi, I don't know if you listened to that, some of the largest concentration of alpha males are in the U.S. prison system.
Well, the thing is, like, look, I don't celebrate any of this, but we understand and know that there is absolutely a rape culture, a real rape culture in the prison systems. In America, and I'm sure in Poland as well. And imagine some guy who's like some foreign PUA, right? Some foreign American PUA, and he's in a Polish prison for standing accused of, even if it didn't happen, even if he was falsely accused, standing accused of raping a Polish woman. So you're this foreign guy who comes into their country and is accused of raping a woman, and now you're in a Polish prison thousands of miles away from your home country. What do you think is going to happen to you? I mean, you're not going to have a fun time. You very well may get raped,
To be fair, I think Roosh is kind of just a salesman. I mean, who knows if he's lying or not about his exploits. I don't really care, but his product is game and PUA stuff, and he's got to sell it, and so he's got to tell a story.
I got to give it to him. He is pretty good at marketing. He knows how to gin up controversy. But that's really what it all is. It's just clickbait, really. But when I saw that, my concern is this. My concern is that some men are going to see that some men that are partial to the PUA mentality, and they're going to, and I've seen this happen. I mean, this can happen because I've seen it. A lot of these PUA types or whatever, these impressionable men that get sucked into the PUA lifestyle or whatever, they really buy into. I think people like Roosh know that is bullshit, but they really buy into this kind of bravado, this like attitude that, you know, well, as long as you're confident in alpha, you don't have to worry about any of these things. And a lot of these men may very well try to emulate this in real life. I mean, who knows? Roosh may even be being untruthful about this certain situation in Poland that he mentioned. But then, you know, you're going to get some kid who's impressionable, doesn't know what he's doing, thinks it's all true, buys into the snake oil, and he's going to be like somewhere in some foreign country out in, I don't know, Thailand or whatever, and he's going to do the wrong fucking thing. I know Thailand is a bad example because there's kind of a thriving black market sex industry there, but some foreign country where he's going to try to be fucking alpha when a woman says no, so he can post it on the red pill Reddit or something, and he's going to end up in a fucking load of trouble, and it's not going to end up fucking well for him, you know, and he's going to end up maybe incarcerated in a foreign fucking country, and even worse. I've seen this where they try to, like, you know, they kind of have these mascots in the PUA community, and they'll say something crazy and controversial, and for people like Roosh, maybe it's just a way to drive traffic to his website. But some of these guys will internalize this and actually try to go out in the real world and attempt it, and end up fucking in deep water that they can't swim themselves out of.
Yeah, no, I share that concern. I mean, my fundamental problem with PUA stuff is that it's not ultimately helpful to men in the truest sense. I mean, in some sense, yeah, if a man's goal is to get laid and that's his main goal, I guess it is. But once again, that's very gynocentric. That's a very gynocentric mode of thinking, and that's why I just favor MGTOWs, because MGTOW as a concept just actually helps men totally revise their worldview. With the PUA, it's really just kind of refocusing the same worldview. It's just, okay, you always wanted to get laid, now I can tell you how to do it. Yeah. You know, it's not opening their eyes up to certain things. Yeah.
Well, there's certain key aspects that I want to focus on in terms of my aversion to PUA. First and foremost, I don't think that their techniques do work as well as as they say they do. The only thing that's helped me in my in terms of and MGTOW, for whatever reason, has allowed me really to just, I mean, the only thing that has helped me get laid more often was the indirect advantage that not caring and genuinely not caring and being able to talk to a woman in a way that shows that I mean, women have just a natural lie detector, a bullshit detector in them that shows, you know, they assess your body language on a subconscious level, and they know when you really mean, and through your body language, sometimes verbal and even nonverbal communication, they really know when you really aren't trying to impress them. And that, more than anything, has helped me get laid. It's kind of like I stumbled into this chick that is into me and whatever. You know, I took it because it was there and cool and whatever. That's the only thing that has helped me get more access to sex. The fact that I didn't even really want it. All of this formulaic, it's almost like you see the PUA forums or whatever, and they'll say, well, what do I do if she says this? And it's like, oh, well, you know, maybe you should try to hold frame and say this. And it's almost like they've gotten so obsessive to the point where they're spelling out medicine for individual social interactions. So when you go out into the real world, you have literally hundreds of thousands of possible social interactions that you can take, and they're giving specific details for some time. You know, what if she says that? What if she says this? Right? It doesn't. It's almost like they've gotten so invested in convincing themselves that this PUA stuff works that they're trying to overcompensate by giving a quote solution for every single personal interaction that you may have with a woman, when really it all just boils down to, are you free or are you not? And women respond to that. And MGTOW, real MGTOW that really are living their lives for themselves, they don't, it comes off in their body language and the way they carry themselves. Women know immediately, and they know immediately that it's not there for them. And of course, MGTOW don't care about this. It's not like we're doing this to impress women, but this is a side effect, right? I don't believe that the PUAs get laid as often as they say they do. And this was uncovered to a degree with the whole debacle, us getting doxxed or whatever. So you had this situation where people like Aaron Clarey, people like Matt Forney were saying things about us, about MGTOW, saying that we were all just, fat neckbeard virgins. If any of them, specifically Clarey, denies this, I can furnish proof that, he was just saying, I believe that you're a fat, overweight MGTOW. And then our images came out, right? And that turns out not to be the case. And it's almost like after that, there was just silence, right? Almost as if these PUAs are kind of just looking for other guys and just throwing shit at the wall and just trying to find out what sticks, right? Because after it came out that, no, we aren't, overweight virgins or whatever, and people could see that, silence, right? It was almost like radio silence from these people. That's because I suspect that what the PUAs actually do is they go around looking to differentiate themselves at the cost and expense of ridiculing or attempting to ridicule other men. And they don't actually know if these other men are as, quote, beta as they would have you believe, but they're just trying to categorize men even if they aren't part of that group, right? Beta, for lack of a better word. I mean, we all know that's silly terminology, but what they go around, what they do is they go around just, slinging shit at the wall and trying to see who it sticks on so they can just differentiate themselves in terms of competition, even in the manosphere, for the affections of the I guess you could call them manosphere groupies and the women watching or whatever, right? It's really, I think, it really just does boil down to a mating strategy on the part of these people. And of course, there is, some money to be made in all of this as well. Buy my CD or whatever. And I don't knock that because, I take donations and all that. But I really believe that it really is, it really is a scam,
Yeah. I mean, if they weren't saying these outrageous things like false rape accusations and what have you, I just wouldn't care. I mean,
I don't care about. I mean, surely they'll lob some other insults at me because of this, but I don't care about these people or whatever. I don't give a shit what they do. But I do care about the potential men that are going to get sucked into believing this nonsense. And that, I think, is the most important thing, is that
I agree.
It's about how many men are going to get pulled into this and believe it and spend 10 years of their life just in this meaningless pursuit of women. I mean, I don't know. I want to avoid that as much as possible. And I think that's why there's so much conflict between MGTOW and PUA sometimes, because we're really competing for the minds of men. Yeah,
in some sense that's true.
Yeah, I mean, not to say that we're like we want to indoctrinate these people, but we do want to compel them to see things in a certain way. It's beneficial, I think, to other MGTOW in a sense. I think if we reach critical mass, then it could actually negatively affect a lot of MGTOW, because we won't have the kind of taxpayer-funded lifestyle that we benefit from today, that the blue pill providers provide to us, I guess. And that'll.
Yeah, I mean, I'm as a final note, I think I'm pretty skeptical about MGTOW ever reaching critical mass. But if it ever did, I think it would be so amorphous, and
yeah,
I don't know if we could even identify with whatever that might be.
Yeah, it would take on a completely different flavor than what it is now, I think. But yeah, I mean, it's just like we do want to help men because we know that it's benefited. I know that MGTOW has benefited myself personally.
Same here.
And I want to try to spread that to other men or whatever, and I want to try to show them that you're not going to find, no matter how many women you sleep with, you're not going to find any kind of contentment in anything that having to do with a female. You're not going to find any kind of self-validation or self-contentment in a woman. It's just not possible, right? PUA say that they're not trying to do that. I would disagree, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's all they're about.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to get the generic kind of PUA apologist who's going to come and say, well, it's more about, just living your life in the way that you see fit. And it's like, well, then it would be MGTOW.
Yeah, exactly. These guys are all about that. The site Return of Kings? I saw some weird article about how to bet a Korean woman. They even go to specific countries and stuff. That's all they care about.
Yeah.
Now, that's fine, but they don't get that MGTOW just don't care anymore, and then we just do our own thing. Because that's not what they're doing.
I think that they do care. They do get it, and it pisses them off. I think that the conflict that arises between MGTOW and PUA is born out of the fact that, so like I told you, ever since going my own way or whatever, I have found that it's become easier to get laid for me, right? It kind of just, you just stumble on it and it's there, and, if it's offered up and, you take it or whatever. It's become easier. It's become less of a hassle. I don't feel like I have to expend any kind of, I don't have to buy this girl any gifts or anything like that. As a matter of fact, that's a losing strategy. That's how you don't get laid. But, right, I was never trying to pursue that. And up until maybe about only a year or two ago, or maybe a little bit more than that, I hadn't even read any PUA stuff. Meaning that MGTOW, right, with a MGTOW such as myself, without ever having to have studied game or even have had, at that point, I didn't even know about Rollo Tomasi. I didn't know about Roosh or any of these people. And I still managed to get laid. Wow, right? What I thought I needed game to get laid. Right.
Well, they would argue, I guess, that you're naturally alpha, or you just naturally have game.
Whatever. That's bullshit, right? I had to, this was a process that I went through, right? Remember, MGTOW is the process of, quote, giving up, right? And that's what I was moving towards. That's what I was studying. That's what I was self-identifying with. And I still managed to get women to sleep with me. So I didn't need all of this fucking extraneous vast fucking repository of PUA tips, right, to fucking get a woman to sleep with me. And if that's the case, then it turns out that MGTOW provides men something that is even more valuable than getting laid, because this is just kind of a random side effect of going your own way. And you can capitalize on that side effect if you want to, but the real prize, the real, quote, game that we're teaching men is the game of learning to just say fuck it and live your life the way that you want to. And that is the real prize that we're after. That is the real, that's like the real pussy, I guess, right? That's the real prize. That's the real, I consider that way more stimulating and entertaining than whatever is going on in my brain during orgasm, right? No matter how much dopamine and serotonin I release when I'm climaxing with a woman, there's still nothing compared. They just can't be compared in any way, in any significant way, to the feeling that I get when I wake up in the morning and I know that I can do whatever the fuck I want, so long as, I don't have to work to pay my bills that day, right? That is something that is way more valuable, I think, and way more fulfilling than getting a nut out and having to repeat the same fucking crack-addicted process again over and over and over again to keep yourself satiated and to keep yourself feeling like you're, quote, alpha, right? And that's what MGTOW offers to men, and it's a superior offer that we're it's superior. What we're offering to men is superior, I think, than what game offers. And a lot of PUAs don't like that, right? And I think that's what causes a lot of the conflict that we're seeing right now, because I think a lot of them are understanding that after you get a certain amount of pussy, it really isn't that impressive anymore. And if you want it to continue to be impressive, you have to continue seeking out more and more, I guess you could call it extreme sexual behavior in order to keep that feeling, that rush that you get during this sexual escapade or whatever. So it's almost as if men are starting to realize that game kind of locks them into this perpetual, almost addictive process, and MGTOW liberates them from that addictive process so they can go on with their lives and get to the business of figuring out what it is that gives them pleasure outside of this primitive, dance of sticking your dick in a vagina, right? And therein lies the value of MGTOW, I think.
Yeah, that's a great way, I find, of ending the conversation. I mean, MGTOW is freedom for yourself, and there's nothing more valuable, as you put it, than getting up and knowing that you can do whatever the fuck you want, and you have no obligations, and that's it. You can do whatever the fuck you want. How many married men, how many pussy-obsessed PUAs can say that? Even the non-married pussy-obsessed PUAs think, oh, I got to get laid. Oh, there's this girl's number. I mean, it's constantly running around in circles, chasing, as you pointed out, the same thing over and over and over again. It's freedom. It's freedom to do whatever you want, and that is a gift that we've given to ourselves, and it's one that, why, as you pointed out, people have a problem with because they don't have it. Particularly PUAs don't have it. They get annoyed that we're long past obsessing over women's vaginas, which half the time look like shit and smell like shit. So, and there's no way to fucking prove that with game. On a final note, many times I've hooked up with a girl and turn her fucking vagina looks like nasty roast beef. No, thank you. What a way to end it. But anyway, so everyone, thanks for listening. It's been, a privilege and honor to talk to my friend Barbarossa for the first time in MGTOW Talks, and hopefully we can do it again.
Sure.
And I will be talking to another guy soon, Computing Forever. A lot of you guys know. And, anything else you'd like to say?
Just, people be advised or whatever, in terms of the site, there is... Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's...
Check out Shedding of the Ego.
Yes, my site, if, for those, maybe, this is going to be uploaded to your channel as well. So maybe people just, haven't heard of, on my channel, or on your channel, they haven't heard of my site or whatever. So the site is sheddingoftheego.com. For those of you that already know about my site, it's going through a period of transition. It's going through an upgrade, a theme change. And so, you have to kind of be a little patient. We're working out all of the bugs, but it's much better. It's much more inclined to the mobile searches that is, getting more and more popular. So I figured I'd optimize it for that right now. So that's what's going on with the site. Other than that, finally, I know that I keep, saying this, but I'm putting the finishing touches on the book. I had to delay that for a couple of days because of what was going on with the transitionary period on the site. So, I just want to keep people posted, and please check it out when you get a chance. And Stardust, again, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, that's mutually appreciated. All right, everyone, take care. We'll talk to you soon.